Okay, so we are live on Facebook and YouTube. And what I need to do now, before we get started, is go live on Instagram, which is separate. So bear with me. Maybe Lana could sing to us while I make sure.
I know that you want people to stay, not to run away.
So it's a little bit clunky. This is my first time using Restream, and it seamlessly streams to 2 platforms. And then the third one, you have to do it manually. So let's see how we do. Go live with the streaming software. Interesting. I've done this before. Okay. I have to copy a stream key, guys. That's easy, right?
So you're actually also teaching us how to do this. Thank you very much for willingly putting yourself out there, and so we know in future how to do this.
Yeah, so it's not so stressful because all you have to do is actually just put in a stream key each time, but I need to like put a post-it note on my computer that says update.
Let me see if on Instagram I could access it, if that helps.
No, not yet. It's not working yet. I am editing it and I am giving it a new stream key for a second time. And then it's sending data. Okay, cool. It hasn't worked. Brilliant.
It hasn't or it has?
No, and I know it can be quite glitchy. Which is like why I was like hesitant about doing it. It says update the channel. Don't even know what it means by that. The only thing it allows me to edit is the stream key, which I have done. It's given me.
If you take off one of the, like YouTube or one of the others, and replace it with Instagram, maybe.
It's not really that. It's just it doesn't want to update my stream key. It says it's thinking about it. If I click save, let's see if that's worked. Are you looking on Instagram?
Yeah, I don't see it at the moment. Let me see now.
It's still sending. There's
something. Oh no, I just put a story about it. Sarah and Alana going live is happening now.
See on Instagram?
Yeah. Happening now, but we're not live. I don't see, I just see the poster.
Right. God bless. So we have a lot to discuss. I think that we should get going. And
do we know if we're recording?
We are live. We're streaming to my YouTube channel. So that for sure will. When I say for sure.
Otherwise, we'll do it all over again.
Exactly. And if I manage to fiddle around enough with this stream key and get it going, then that would be great. I have seen people do this, and their stream like kicked in halfway through when they were talking.
Okay. I'm just seeing if we're seeing it on Facebook Live. It says we live on Facebook, but do I see it? Hang on. It says I'm live, but I see us on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, great. Welcome, Alana. Thank you for joining me in this experiment.
Nothing to add a little bit, nothing else. I can add a bit of fun and excitement to, already fun and exciting talking to you. Yeah.
So I don't want to be too distracted by looking to see, like, this thing keeps saying it's sending data. So today we are talking about ADHD, and that's really ironic, isn't it? Because you know, like the typical meme about people that have ADHD is, oh, squirrel, you know, I've seen something that's distracted me. So I'm going to try very hard not to be distracted by the fact that Instagram isn't working.
You can, right. I think you can enlarge the thing. So I just see you, but I don't know if you can actually.
Oh, I see both of us.
No, what I mean, right, but it takes away all the like the chat. You probably need to see it, but for if you're struggling, it takes away the whole chat. Just full screen, you and me, do it your way. That's all I can see.
Okay. We are going to get started with or without technical hitches. I have a box here for chat. Oh, Mayan says live on Facebook, so that is excellent. And if I do this, I was going to say I'll bring up the chat, but that's fine. Right.
Okay.
So we have prepared very nicely for this. Yes. The only thing we can't be prepared for is the fact that Instagram doesn't want to go live. So obviously you are an ADHD coach. We had that on all our, you know, our titles on all our flyers and banners and posts and stuff. But just introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself and then we will get going.
Okay. So I'm Alana Stern. I am an ADHD coach, NLP practitioner, and EFT practitioner. And I bring that all together to coach neurodiverse Jewish adults who struggle with overwhelm and everyday indecision and all the extra executive functioning and planning that adhering to a Jewish lifestyle demands.
And for people that aren't Jewish, just explain.
I apologize. Okay, right.
No. I was going to explain it by saying kind of Christmas every week, but you explain it in your own way.
Well, we have a very lively Jewish calendar, let's say.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Right. We could say we, put on a Christmas meal every Friday night. We have Christmas every month. Almost every month there's some kind of Christmas, and that lasts 8 days and 7 days. And I mean, there must be 5 of those within the months. So there's a lot of switching from routine to not routine. Like the not routine is almost as routine as the routine. And we know the ADHD complicated relationship with routines, how we need it, but we feel trapped by it. So there's a whole lot of extra.
Yes, indeed.
And business, if you're a business owner, there is a whole lot of extra executive function planning that you wouldn't necessarily have to do on your own if you were employed.
Right.
Self-directing, a lot of self-management, which is difficult for ADHD.
Indeed. And when I started your coaching with you, being coached by you, I said to you that, I have my work thing figured out, really just need to know how to manage, like you say, like that there's always something coming up.
Yeah.
And I just was never managing, like we'll talk about closing loops. I just wasn't coping with running the household. Yes. But it's quite funny because through working with you, I also saw that there were, work leaks into life and life leaks into work. And I saw, there was so much overlap, even though I did already have systems in place in my business. Working with you, it upgraded all of that as well.
I think, we transferred where it is working. We not copy pasted, but we, and adapted your systems, the same systems that you knew work for you, into the home.
Yeah. So we put our heads together and we thought, okay, I didn't want to overload people with too many ideas and points and tips and blah blah blah. So we really consolidated it into 4 really powerful, what would you call them, Ideas, I guess. Principles. That's a nice one. So the first one that we agreed on is the joy of brain dumping, like getting everything out of your head. And I know that we will have like different methods for this. So you go first.
Yeah. So I'll just take a step back and explain it with a kind of metaphor that one of the biggest struggles if you have ADHD, it's a weak working memory. So you can think of working memory as like a bucket inside your head that needs to hold things that you need to refer back to. Like, what am I doing today? What do I need to remember to do? If you're making a decision, to hold the consequences of making each decision, the pros and cons. What am I walking into a room for? Hold that in mind while you're walking up the stairs. Now, most people can hold about 4 things at a time. I think it's impossible to hold more than 7 things, and that's why phone numbers used to have 7 digits in them. People with ADHD hold 1 or 2 things at a time. So we have a leaky bucket. So we accept that, and we outsource. We buy a new bucket, like a pen and paper, a diary, not a planner, a notebook, a digital system that you have, a whiteboard, and we get these things out of our heads and in front of our eyes or ears. I'll talk about the ears in a minute. So, like in the, on a day-to-day basis, we're talking about to-do lists, but I'm going to change this. I don't like to use to-do lists for my clients because people with ADHD struggle with like the concept of time. And when you see a list, you see it's either now or not now. And it's difficult to look at that list and imagine, well, some of it I have to do today, but some of it I can do tomorrow, and some of it I can do the next day. So I don't call it a to-do list. I call it a capture list, or like literally a bucket list, right? It's I want or need to do to move on in life. And wherever you put that, that's outside of your head, it's much easier to manipulate because ADHD brains are hyperactive inside, if not outside. Like if we're not hyperactive outside, we're hyperactive thoughts inside.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a very good, because people are like, oh, you're not hyper. I'm like, come inside my brain.
People say, I can't have ADHD. First of all, what used to be called ADD is now all lumped together as ADHD. So then people say, but I'm not hyperactive. Think about what's going on inside.
Right.
Right. So keeping focused in the long term on the long-term goals. This bucket is also not leaky bucket syndrome. Is also makes it difficult for us to stay focused on a long-term goal in the face of shiny object syndrome, in the face of distractions. So I'll give you an example. If you know that there's a long-term goal to grow your business, and posting 3 posts a week on social media, that consistency will get you there. And then after a while, you're going to hear somebody else say like, oh, this is the way you should do it. And this is the best way to grow your business. And there's this new thing out there. And you're going to find yourself going everywhere. Getting your goal in front of your eyes, you would do something like put up a Post-it on your screen saying, this week's posts are my clients for 6 months' time. Just to keep your eyes on the prize, because our buckets don't always keep that long-term, the rewards, the long-term goals in mind. What does getting in front of your ears mean? Some people respond better to audio cues than visual cues. Sometimes the visual cues will get faded into the background after a while. So if you want to remind yourself of a long-term goal, for example, think of a song that reminds you of success. And you can use that song as the alarm to remind you to post 3 times a week. What we do, and getting in front of your ears, is what we as coaches do. We hold the bucket as coaches, the person on the other side, whether they have ADHD or not. And they get to put all their thoughts in this bucket and sort them out, hear them in front of their ears, and maybe we do something in front of their eyes too. And that happens when you talk to somebody, not even a coach, when you talk it out with somebody.
Yeah, and then I think you don't realize until someone points it out to you, like, this is not a normal way to function. Holding all of this and having it whirling around in your head, and it can be business things that you need to do, but then there can also be like switching the laundry, and you have to do a supermarket order and picking kids up and blah blah blah, and then I've got a call. And if you just go through your life doing that, and no one ever points it out to you, and it's never challenged, you just think that that's the normal way of doing things.
Yes.
So it's so important. Like when I learned about brain dumping, I bought my first, where's my passion planner? I think this is either year 9 or it's possibly going on to year 10 of having a passion planner. Now, like we'll talk about this a bit further down about, like
your system,
advice that people
is
give.
The one that works. Yeah, there's no perfect system.
Exactly.
The one that works.
But like,
yeah.
The epiphany for me was my passion planner has this thing here that says space of infinite possibility, and it was like, okay, all my brain is going in here. Yes. Everything that's on my mind, and I'll usually do it at the beginning of the week. I'm not that disciplined. I don't always remember to do it on Sunday. Sometimes it happens on a Monday or a Tuesday. But like taking out all the things that are troubling me and I'm worried that I'm going to forget. I think that's another like ADHD kind of stroke anxiety thing, is that this worry about forgetting something or dropping the ball. So like taking that, when you say stop carrying everything inside your head, it's huge. It's huge. It's like, that's why I think it's point number 1. Yes. I like that you said leaky bucket syndrome, and I loved all your little.
I know it sounded like leaky gut, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it, but yeah.
Now also it's the idea of talking things through. Like you talked about, like having it in front of your eye, like both of them are very powerful, because when you write something down, just that process of taking it out of your mind and writing it down on paper, something happens. It's psychological studies that have shown that it becomes more concrete. And the same with speaking. You start talking something through. How many times you started talking something through and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. No, I don't want to do that. And then things start coming to you as you're verbalizing, even though this is a thought that's been spinning around for who knows, could be months, could be years.
Right.
And when it's verbal.
Bring it outside of you get to examine it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's kind of spooky.
And I think a lot of people sitting here would say, like, I don't know why, but I just prefer handwriting than these digital things. That's because handwriting activates more brain parts than, first of all, than typing, and even worse than typing is just like swiping. But
yeah, right. I've seen people doing that.
But yes, there are advantages to digital systems. I have my bucket list is Trello, because I don't have a book big enough.
Yeah.
And my daily and monthly goal lists are on a nice big fat what do you call it? Journal, not notebook, journal that cannot get lost. It can get coffee spilled on it.
Because it's so big, right?
Yeah, it's big. I work from home, so I don't have to worry about schlepping it everywhere, carrying it around.
Right.
But that hasn't always been my system. The most important thing is, like, the best system is the one that you're actually using and using at the moment.
Right, exactly. Like, do it your way is the title of this, and that's for a reason. It's like when I work with my coaching clients, I recommend that they use Trello. That's because very often the clients I work with, their minds work in a similar way to me. Yeah. And whenever I show them Trello, I'm like, don't be scared. It's so flexible. You can make it as busy or as simple. You can do what you want with it. It's like having Post-it notes that you're just jumbling around.
Yeah.
But like, I've definitely had some people say to me, I think I want to work with Monday, or I think I want to work with Asana, or whatever. Absolutely fine. Whatever works for you. It's not like if you don't work with Trello, it's not going to work. It's just, this is,
and it's not like you have to stick with it for life. If you
No,
can,
exactly.
we
Yes.
like novelty, we like interest, and if you stop using something, it's okay to try something else.
Also,
Yeah.
yes. Now I'd like to address the elephant.
Yes.
Where's my elephant? I don't know if you can see him. Can you see my elephant there?
Yes. You have a real elephant there. Yes.
So I love this idea of the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. It reminded me, I meant to look it up. Henry Ford, when he invented the the factory line way of building cars, he talked a lot about the idea of the production line. And it's like, the thought of building a car is very daunting, but you're just breaking it down into, each person on that line had just a very specific task to do, and look what we built together.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd never heard the elephant analogy. Maybe that's
it was
the African in you.
No, it's actually not. It was the biggest thing that stuck with me, that my what do you call her, lecturer, the course coordinator, when I was certifying as an ADHD coach. That's the first time I heard it, and it was like if you ask me one thing I took away from that whole certification, it was that the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. I think maybe because it's from Hebrew, saying in Hebrew that was translated, that you couldn't find it.
No, that's cows.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not
slightly
sure.
Less polite as well.
Yeah. And it just really shows you that breaking something down is the antidote to almost any inaction, especially inaction because of overwhelm. People with ADHD are often big picture thinkers. So when you look at a task, you're often looking at the whole project, and it's difficult to see just the part. So if I have on my list, what did we say there? Grow my email list. And I look at that, grow my email list. That's a project. So of course I'm going to want to avoid it. The emotional side of our brain, its job is to keep us alive. And that part of the brain doesn't understand what's the difference between growing an email list and a tiger hiding in the grass about to jump on you. And it's still the same thing.
It's the same thing.
So the hack that we do to help this little brain at the back is to break down each step, so each individual step doesn't feel threatening to that less developed part of our brain. So growing your email list. I have this little technique that I do with my clients where I say, imagine you're going on vacation tomorrow on holiday, and this is a robot, and this robot's going to do all your work for you. You just have to program it. And from what I remember from primary school computers, because that's the last time I studied computers, you had to put it with a turtle, and I'm not giving away my age now with the turtle and everything, but you have to program things step by step.
Right.
So what's the first step in growing your email list? Find a email hosting platform. Send invites to all my contacts. Get a lead magnet. Now, here's the trick. You have to do a gut check for each step to see if it still feels like something you would want to avoid. All it means is that you haven't broke it down small enough.
Right.
So if I say find a hosting platform and you still feel like avoiding that, then it just means let's break that down. How do you go about finding a hosting platform? Do you make a list of acquaintance, whatever, colleagues to ask? Do you compare prices? Do you write pros and cons of each one? Do you pick your top 3? And anything can be broken down, as small as possible to get you started. And often you don't have to break down the whole project. It's just the first 2 or 3 steps. I've had clients where the first step is sit down, put my feet, to get off the couch.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, think about where you want to actually. Yeah, absolutely. And it ties into anxiety. It really does. When my anxiety is very, very high, there are certain things I just don't want to do because they're 8 or 9 steps long.
Yes. So we want to calm that. Anxiety is the anxiety is your stress response making a mistake and seeing, well, most of it, sometimes it doesn't make a mistake. Sometimes it's anxiety is right. If you hear a noise in the night, God forbid, it's going to make you anxious, a strange noise down in your house, and that could save your life.
Right, exactly.
But
like it's there for a reason. Yeah.
It's there for a reason, and we just have to check, how is this a real threat? And if it feels like a real threat, because it could, like, what's a step small enough that step won't feel like a real threat?
Beautiful.
Step by step. Yeah.
And I think it's a really good visual, because elephants are absolutely huge. So the other thing that I felt ties into this in terms of breaking things down and doing things one thing at a time is multitasking.
Oh yes, that monster, energy vampire monster.
Energy vampire monster, because I used to like be really proud that I could multitask, until I started to realize that it actually wasn't getting me very far. It was incredibly inefficient. And then my dear friend Sherry Teagan taught me the concept of closing loops, and it was just like when she talked about closing loops, it made so much sense to me. I was like, oh, so you mean completely finish this one thing, ship it, whatever it is. It could be like doing the laundry,
which validate in itself is a very difficult thing to do if you have ADHD, because we often jump to the next thing in fear that we will forget it.
It's always in fear that I'm going to forget. And and I love it when I watch these hilarious reels of, there's one that really stuck in my mind. The wife comes home to absolute chaos, and she's like, honey, what happened? He's like, well, and everything's open and nothing's finished, and the bin lid is open, the oven's open, everything. And he's like, well, I was cooking, and then I needed to chop something, and then I had to throw something away, but the bin was full, so I took it outside, and while I was outside I could see that the plants needed watering, blah, 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 blah. So he hasn't finished dinner, he's left the bin lid open and hasn't relined the bin. The oven door is open. He's still chopping stuff. Nothing is finished. And I just like, yes. And I kind of keep him in my mind, because I'll be loading up the washing machine, and then I need to go back to whatever else I was doing. But now I'm in the laundry room. So now everything in Laundryland is calling to me. But no, that wasn't what I was doing. I was in the middle of making my bed, and I just needed to put something on. So multitasking is just like, if you are not a neurotypical person, and you have a tendency to get distracted, what would you say? Like, I don't know that my method is necessarily the kindest one of reining myself in. So how do we rein ourselves in a kind way?
Right. First of all, you can allow yourself some kind of movement in this, because people with ADHD can feel trapped and it can be difficult to focus on one thing. So often, if you're trying to do two things that are using two different brain parts, that's okay. Like, sometimes focusing on two things is better than focusing on a million. Like, an example, I don't know, listening to music while washing the dishes, or speaking on the phone while cleaning up. If you're using two different brain parts, that's okay. The reason I say multitasking is not just a myth, it's an actual monster, is because every time you're switching back and forth, that's a huge energy drain. It's like turning your, I think, if you would switch your car ignition off and then on again at every traffic light, and on again, it takes much more of the battery. If you turn your computer off and on and off and on and off and on, it's going to suck way more of the battery. How do we do it kindly to ourselves? It goes back to starting with our first principle. Once you have a system that you can trust, that you won't forget things, you don't have to do it now because you'll forget them, then that in itself can give you a little bit more calm in focusing on what you intended to focus on. I often just have a piece of paper next to you. If it's something that you're sitting still with when you're doing the laundry, So I'll get to that in a minute. That's something different. If you're sitting still and you're working on your computer and you get this idea, just have a little post-it note and take a breather for a second and decide, okay, no, it's not a second, it's going to take 5 seconds. Decide, is this thing calling me as important and urgent as my intention to finish this? And if it is, fine. If it's not, like, turn back to your thing knowing that you've captured it on a piece of paper and you'll get to it afterwards.
Right.
Something like laundry. Of course, I've got this terrible hole in my bucket, and I was going to say something about that. Like if you're right, you're saying, I'm in the laundry room right now. I want to do this before I forget. If you say something out loud about where you want to return back to, say it out loud. It often helps. I know somebody who said her mom she grew up with a mom who would sing all the time, like sing songs like I'm going back to the bedroom, or
I very often, like, I went downstairs last night to get something. I did a whole bunch of stuff and then came back upstairs without the thing. Can't remember what it was now. So the whole way down the stairs, I sang my phone song until I had it in my hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's great for exercise. I go up and down the stairs a million times with all the things I forget. So there's a plus to everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on to number 3, which is it good for you?
Yes.
And this was the goose. We've got a lot of animals coming up today. Yeah. This is, what's good for the goose is not always good for you. Don't know where that phrase comes from. Do you?
Yes, the goose and the gander. Isn't that? There's that. What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. That's what that's an expression that I learned in some.
Oh, right.
Maybe, yeah. Something about what's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. Something like that, which is a male goose. If you don't know that.
Yes.
Don't know how I know that. But
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, the idea is, and this is where the planner thing comes up. It's like, people say, oh, have you tried using a planner? It's like, we love to give advice to other people, but what we don't think about is like actually listening to the person, knowing the person, and understanding that something that's worked for you is going to really suck for them. And this becomes really difficult in business because people will sell you their blueprint, foolproof system, do this and go viral and make millions.
Yes.
And it's very unfair, and it very often can make you feel like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can all these people do this and I can't? So
that's like one of the crucial things for living a life with ADHD, and especially, running a business with ADHD, is that when things don't always go the way we want them to, we automatically assume that we just have to try harder.
Yes.
And
be more disciplined.
It's not about trying hard. Yes, I just need self-discipline. I just need work.
Well, I called myself lazy to you yesterday and you called me out.
Yes. No, there is no lazy in that. Lazy and unmotivated, those two words are the biggest untruths for someone with ADHD. You're not lazy, you're not unmotivated, you have difficulty initiating action based on your motivations. I know that deep inside you have the same beautiful motivations as everyone else. You just have difficulty acting on your internal motivation. So this is what the thing why I say, let's stop trying harder and try differently. If you have a neurodiverse brain, it is a different way of being in the world. Your brain has a different operating system. So whereas a neurotypical brain can initiate action based on rewards, consequences, importance, they realize a neurotypical person can say, oh, well, this is important, so I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, it's so annoying. I want it to happen. It's just so alien.
Have a really bad consequence if I don't do it, but that doesn't spur them onto action.
No.
What spurs us into action, and this is your operating manual for ADHD, is stimulation, like novelty, interest, fun, passion. That's what lights us up.
Right. So you talk about like dopamine, the dopamine and all that kind of thing, like attaching a dopamine hit to something. Because when I was working with you, I kept talking about things being boring.
Yes.
Like folding laundry is boring. Well, it's not anymore, because that's now when I get to listen to my true crime podcast.
Great, right. So twinning, you're twinning something. You're what's the word? You're adding like a side dish to your boring task.
I mean, I feel like there's always a limit as well. It's like, I will never iron.
Yeah.
There's a limit to how much the dopamine hit is going to help, I think.
And that's how people identify my family going out. They're the ones with the most crinkled shirts. And that's my claim to fame. Same thing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize I was clicking on that comment and that it was going to show up. I was just looking at it, but it was Sarah Leah had said, I have a graveyard of 1 million planners that have been abandoned. It's literally, I'm looking up to my left, I've got shelves, and this, I mean, planner wise, the passion planner works for me for like I said, 9 or 10 years. But I also like, every time I get a journal, I'm like, right, this is the journal. This is it. Yeah. And there's about 10 of them up there.
Yeah. I like,
it's fine.
Something that you can make your own. Blank. I have to have it A4 size because I need to think. And
Interesting.
I have my,
so they're not big enough. The regular
work list on like a double spread. I make a work list on one side and a home list on another side, so it doesn't look so overwhelming. A lot of my clients will do, so you'll have your big list and then you'll have a today list on a separate page with, you're not allowed to put more than 5 items on. So
so this is what I was going to say under this thing about is it good for you, is about overloading to-do lists. It's something that I harp on about a lot, because I find that my clients think that they're going to get some badge of honor if they overload themselves. All they're going to do is cause burnout, because if you think about to-do lists, they are eternal, like laundry, like cooking, like having to shower, all these things. Like, you don't really get a medal because you've got to keep doing it.
And
there
it's
are
not about
things to do.
It's about getting choosing the right things out of all the infinite things you could possibly do.
Right. Oh yeah, and then there's another animal. There's another animal which I didn't mention, which is the frog. Because
like the talk at the zoo or something. That would have been
good. So I mean, I know that not everyone identifies with this idea of eat the frog. The idea of eat the frog is you make a list and you put the frog. Eating the frog obviously isn't that pleasant, but just get it out of the way first. Now, it didn't work for me for a long time until I made it work for me.
Yes.
Until I thought, okay, eat the frog. Well, someone laid it out for me in a much better way. So it's eat the frog, and then I'll explain that in a minute. And then you've got red tasks, yellow tasks, green tasks, and then star tasks. And this is really cool. If I remember, I'll try and share it afterwards. So what's the frog? The frog is that thing that you just keep avoiding, and it's making you feel sick thinking about it, but you know you've got to get it done. Like accounting, maybe there's like, I know that someone paid me via PayPal, but that's not enough. I still have to issue an invoice from my account, but it's boring and it's irritating, and it means I've got to go and look things up, whatever, and it's just making me feel And then, so, okay, that is the frog that I'm going to eat today, because after I do, I'm going to feel so much better. Yeah. So it's not, it can be something that's going to take you 2 minutes. Yes. Eating the frog isn't this big, massive thing. And this is the thing that I love about, I wish I could remember who broke it down like this. The red stuff is like, let me get this right, because I'm worried that I'm going to like say it wrong, and then I'm going to watch it back and say, oh my God, I did that all wrong. Okay, so it's the frog, and then we do the green stuff. So the green stuff is like working on things for your business, and it can be 4 or 5 things maximum. Mm-hmm. Then the red stuff is kind of like the mundane things. So go to the dentist, swap the laundry over, finish my supermarket order, make dinner. I literally will forget to do that if I don't write it down. And then you've got the amber thing, stroke gold star things, which are ongoing projects that you just need to start making a dent in. It's not going to get done today. It's something that could take 3 months, but do one of those micro steps today and then give yourself a gold star.
Yeah. Right.
That was a very long explanation of Eat the Frog. But that's our third animal.
Frog is suggesting that if you do the thing you're dreading or you're putting off the most first, it fires you up and it raises your dopamine. Dopamine is what's low with people with ADHD, and it's also the motivation, feel good brain chemical. So if you do eat that frog, you feel fantastic and your dopamine's up, and then you keep going. If, however, you cannot get to eat that frog and you end up just procrastinating and avoiding it, and it's hanging over you and making you feel awful, and you end up wanting to avoid your whole to-do list because of it, you can eat dessert first. Some people need to build up levels of dopamine, especially in the morning when you're waking up, to like not kickstart your, I think the frog would be kickstarting your day, and eating your dessert, doing smaller tasks that have a clear closing loop, give you a stronger dopamine hit than what you had said about, how did you phrase that? Those tasks that you would chip away at.
So like ongoing projects, foundational pieces that can't get done in a day, but you're looking to move the needle forward.
So what you're doing there to support your ADHD is by calling it a star task, so that even if I don't finish this giant project, I get a star for doing what I to do today. And I think I really want to mention this thing. We talked about it together now, this whole idea of consistency versus commitment. Because if you're not a consistent person, if you don't have a consistent brain, then there's a point, like, consistency helps you, but if it's not working for you, the most consistent thing you can do is just get back on the wagon.
Right.
Just be consistent with not giving up. Just be consistent with your commitment. That I stopped posting on social media altogether for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I just focused on, it's not about a streak of consistency.
Right. That's what I don't like about all these apps that encourage you to have a streak. So it just makes you feel bad.
Yeah, if you can do it, then great.
Then great. Not,
it's not about a streak, it's about climbing back on to something you're committed to. I think that I know.
So I'm going to move on to, I can see the time creeping up, so I am going to move on to our final.
Yes, which is also
our final.
Yeah.
Hoping that we haven't already discussed everything. No, I don't think we have.
I got plenty more.
Number 4 is figuring out your zone of genius. So when I was going through my accreditation, this was a exercise that we did. And when I looked into zone of genius, I'd never heard the phrase before, but it's quite a well-known.
And when I hired you to get, some business strategy, you did it with me as well. And it was extreme. It was very enlightening, that exercise.
Yeah. So the idea of it is that there are things that you are brilliant at. You absolutely rock it, and no one else can do it the way that you do. And that is your zone of genius. Now, there are things that you are good at. You can do them. And then there are things that, I guess I could do that. And then there are the fourth one, which is like, oh my God, I never want to see this or do this ever again. And just and I remember it's like 4 boxes, and you're kind of like just mapping it out. And then again, you've written it down, you see it in front of you, and it's many light bulb moments when you do it. And the idea is to spend as much of your time in your business working in your zone, in and on your zone of genius. So for me, one of the first things I did was outsourcing most of the accounting tasks. I mean, I still need to do things like issue invoices, whatever, but in terms of like expenses and anything else, like Even like emailing my accountant, I've outsourced it. I think I was always fearful that it was going to cost me a fortune. It doesn't. It doesn't cost a fortune at all.
And you're investing in your business because you're conserving your energy for your zone of genius.
Yeah, and then I don't get that sick feeling every time I'm opening up my accounting program and thinking, oh God, the expenses aren't there, because I know at the end of every month they're going to be sorted. I mean, there are many other examples, but it's like that fourth box of, oh God, this is something I never ever want to be responsible for ever again. For me, it was anything to do with the numbers.
Yes, right. I look at this whole, like, the zone of genius area, especially for people with ADHD who are running their own business. It's even more important because our brains run on passion and stimulation. So there's this Japanese concept called ikigai, which is
ikigai,
right. Whereas if you professionally, and in life in general, I guess, if you professionally can find that sweet spot and spend most of your time doing something that there's 4 characteristics: doing something that you love doing, that you are good at, because not everything we're good at we love doing.
Yes.
So you love doing it, you're good at it, the world needs it, so something that has meaning, has purpose. And the fourth one is, because professionally we have to put bread and butter on the table, something that can support you.
Right. So it doesn't always, I mean, I had a conversation with someone recently where she's doing something that puts money on the table. She's good at it. It's fun. She loves the people she works with. Is it what she dreamt of doing when she was a little girl? No. But some people don't even have that. I didn't know what I wanted to be, dream of being anything. A window dresser, I think, at one point, and a vet. There you go. And, it doesn't have to be like, follow your passion. Like, it does my head in. Like, it's just so, like, not the path. That's not how you should be starting off your businesses. And I think that's what with this ikigai exercise, people misunderstand. Right. And the way that you described it is much healthier.
Right. That, first of all, of course, there's always going to be things that you have to do in your business that are not stimulating, that are not exciting, that you don't enjoy. And the trick is to, first of all, figure out, like, what is your zone of genius? What does make you, what are you interested in? Where are you using your strengths? Because when you get to use your strengths, that raises dopamine too. When you get to act on things you care about, that raises dopamine. So once you know what that is, and then you know where you struggle, or what's harder for you, or what drains your energy more, you can decide, what can I outsource from what drains my energy? If you don't have any budget, if you're a new business owner and you don't have anything to outsource, there are ways that you can support I don't want to call them weaknesses, your challenges, your planning challenges, your memory challenges. There are other ways you can support those, but the goal of thriving with ADHD is not to become better at being normal. It's not to get an A+ in organization.
And also, when you're talking about outsourcing and not having a budget, now that we have AI, it isn't really the same anymore. Like, for example, you can take a video that you created for YouTube, run it through, I mean, obviously you have to pay a membership, whatever, but, run it through a software and it will create, 10 videos, 10 reels or YouTube shorts for you. So you don't even have that worry anymore of, I can't afford to hire someone.
When you're procrastinating because you have no idea how to do something, honestly, ChatGPT has been for technical things, like, well, how am I going to put this video up on YouTube?
And it'll give you the steps.
It's just so helpful for just how to do technical things. But I just want to go back to that. You just have to be organized enough so that conserve your energy for your zone of genius. So that's why we do systems. I know our ADHD brains hate systems and hate habits and routine, but we do I talk with my clients about skeleton routines, like rhythms to your day, especially if you're a business owner and you have your time is your own to direct. You don't have to have time blocking.
I like the idea of rhythms.
Right.
It's like seasons to your life. I like this concept.
A guide.
Rhythms of the day. Nice.
Consider the rhythm a guide, and that's organized enough. Then your day is organized enough.
Yeah, and I think it's very overwhelming for people to listening to this advice from people that don't function in the same way that you do, and they're like, I get up with my alarm at 5 a.m, and I take 3-4 cleansing breaths, and then I drink my lemon water, and then I do my stretching, and then I write in my gratitude journal, and I'm literally thinking this is going to take me till 12. First of all, I ain't waking up at 5 for anything apart from a flight. And secondly, that's going to take me till lunchtime. I just feel sick at the idea of having to follow someone's, this is my morning.
So many people with ADHD will come to me saying, well, this is what I should do, and I want to do, trying to do. And so, and I would say, like, what's one thing that can hook you, like, to grab onto to give the day a bit of grounding? What's one thing?
Could be breathing. Could be like focus on your breathing.
And one habit at a time. Habits do not work when you're trying to build, 20 a whole routine at a time.
Yeah, there was an amazing video. I'm thinking maybe you shared it. I haven't been able to find it, but she was talking about, and it wasn't like I hadn't heard about neural pathways before. But
I think Jessica McCabe with the dominoes. Was it that one?
Maybe I'll describe it and you'll tell me if it was you. She said that you're literally creating a brand new neural pathway, bearing in mind that for most of your life, okay, please share that with me afterwards. Most of your life, you have done things this way.
Yes.
Like, for example, most of my life, I was carrying around everything in my head. Now I'm creating a new neural pathway for a new habit. It is not going to happen overnight. And stop being so hard on yourself about the fact that you don't have willpower, or you're a quitter, or you're lazy, or anything. You're not. You're building a new habit. And contrary to what Instagram, TikTok, and everything else may tell you, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, you can imagine like there's neural pathways as if you want to, you've got this highway in your brain of, I don't know, what's a habit? Eating a cookie when I'm stressed. That's such a wide neural pathway. It's such a habit that it's going so fast. And if I want to eat a carrot when I'm stressed because the crunch might de-stress me too, that you can think of that as like a jungle that has to be hacked away.
It's like this new Inside Out. I mean, I loved Inside Out, the first one. The second one, also genius. They show how as a teenager she's creating this sense of self, and it's all these different experiences and memories that all send up these they're like neurons, with like synapses. It's very, very clever. And those all converge together to create, this new version of Riley. And it's absolutely brilliant. And it just made me think about habits. Anyway, spoiler if you haven't seen the film. She's a teenager now.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, yes. I was trying to get someone to go with me, and they all went on their own. So I think I'm just going to take myself to go and see it. If you can walk away with this thing about habits, and I know habits are so hard for people with ADHD, forgetting to do the habit or falling off the wagon is just as important. It's not the opposite of building a habit. It's the part of it, because there's no such thing as failure in anything, in your business, in life. Failure is just data to curiously learn from that will inform your next step.
And I think the use of the word curious.
Yes.
My friend Lisa uses that a lot. Just be curious without judgment. Ask yourself why. You know. And her voice like sings in my head. Well, it's not singing, rings in my head of like coming to things from a place of curiosity. It took me a while to figure out what that looked like.
If you have difficulty, getting into curiosity, put aside the word why, because that can be judgmental, and use what or how. How did what I do influence? How could I do it differently? What could I do differently? Why is not always our friend, but I think that's
funny. based on the Simon Sinek book of Start With Why. So you would.
Sorry, Simon, but yeah, I know. As a coach, we were always taught that why is not the most helpful question. How, what,
and what?
your questions with what.
Yeah, because it's a similar thing. Like, you know, what is stopping you, or
what got in your way?
What happened? Yeah,
If
what
you
was
ask-
in the way?
If you ask yourself why didn't you do it, or you ask yourself what did you
Yeah,
do?
the response is going to be because I'm lazy.
Right.
Yeah,
Or what
interesting.
were you doing instead gives you information.
Yeah.
I think with, like, let's go back to the buckets. I think the way to thrive in business, anybody to thrive in business and to thrive with ADHD in the game of life, is with buckets and buckets and buckets of curiosity and compassion.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the compassion is just, it's so key. You know, when I'm coaching clients, we work a lot around mindset, and I'm trying to think who it was. Again, you know, like in the Jewish world, where if you quote a rabbi, especially, you know, you don't say it in your name. You remember who it was that originally said it, and I'm so obsessed with that. So, and I feel like, apologies to whoever it was.
Good memories, and they are, because of, you know, social media.
We see so many things
being thrown at us. Yes,
exactly. So, but it was talking about something that I really, you know, I harp on about a lot, which is that if you haven't got your mindset sorted, you know, it's the foundation of everything. Like you're really expecting a lot from yourself if you haven't worked on what the stories are that you're telling yourself and what is going on up here. Go on.
No, so I just learned this the other day, which was fascinating. That, I mean, it just came clear to me that often our negative feelings are because of we're jumping to what we make the story meaning. If you forget to pick up your child, you know, or I don't know, you forget to send them with lunch to school, okay, or you forget to send them in a white shirt to school when they're supposed to, then there are primary normal emotions to feel there, not guilt and shame. You know, normal primary emotions: frustration about anger with, I don't know, sadness that your child's going to be hungry. And we often skip over those normal primary emotions and say, okay, so what is this circumstance? What am I taking it to mean? What story am I making about it? And those stories are the ones that get in our way, because shame and guilt, Casey Davis says this in her famous, fantastic ADHD-friendly book called How to Keep House While Drowning.
I've got that.
Nobody ever shamed you into something else. You've never been able to shame yourself into better housework or something. I can't remember what it is. So these stories that we tell ourselves, I'm lazy, I'm frazzled, I'm stupid. Those are the things that we can change the story with curiosity and compassion.
Beautiful. Perfect ending. So as far as I can see, this has also streamed to your page, maybe, who knows.
I connected it to my Facebook profile, so it will hopefully be in there.
I'm hoping that somewhere I will be able to figure out a way I can just share a link to this for people that are on Instagram and were planning on tuning in. I will link it somehow so that they can watch it back. And thank you so much. This is brilliant.
I think we've been talking about this for 4 years, so there's hope for anyone who's had long, you know, goals that they feel they're not getting to. It took us a few years to get this live together, and
it all started with one small step, which was messaging you and saying, do you want to do this?
Yes.
Right? And then once you said yes, there was just another step of figuring out what we were going to say and when we were going to say it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this opportunity. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to